Thank you for spending your time with Listen and Imagine. We hope this journey sparked your thoughts and stirred your imagination. Series title Time Travel Exists But Is Hidden, Part 1 The Time Trap What If It's Already Real? Have you ever felt like time isn't what they told us it is, that somehow, somewhere, something about the way we experience it isn't quite right? We mark time with clocks, calendars, deadlines. We're taught it's linear, forward only. Tick tock, tick tock. But what if that's a lie? What if time isn't a one-way street, but a hallway full of hidden doors and someone's already found the key? Scene 1, drawing the listener in with intrigue. Let me ask you something. Why does every great empire, every powerful government, obsess with controlling not just land or wealth, but information? What would be the ultimate information? The future. Imagine what a government could do with knowledge of what's to come, or worse, the power to change it. So here's the big question. What if time travel already exists but has been locked away, kept out of reach, hidden by those in power? Sounds crazy? Maybe. Maybe not. Let's start peeling back the layers. 2. Building the conspiracy foundation. In the 2000s, a series of declassified U.S. military documents mentioned something unusual. Phrases like temporal displacement, chrononavigation, and nonlinear timeline containment. Now, why would official documents from the Department of Defense talk about time in those terms? It's not science fiction. These were real internal memos, buried in thousands of pages nobody was meant to read. And it gets weirder. Ever heard of Project Pegasus? A man named Andrew Basiago claims he was involved in it as a child. He says the US government developed time travel tech back in the 1970s. Teleportation, time jumps, even missions to Mars. Crazy? Sure. But he's not alone. Multiple whistleblowers, independent of each other, described eerily similar technologies. They speak of something called jump rooms. Allegedly, these were devices that let you step in and instantly arrive in a different time or place. If that's true, then someone figured this out decades ago and kept it from the world. Scene 3, presenting the science carefully. Let's ground this a bit. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, not a conspiracy theory, a Nobel-level truth, tells us something wild. Time isn't constant. It bends. If you travel near the speed of light, time slows down for you compared to someone back on Earth. This is called time dilation. It's already been proven with atomic clocks on high-speed jets and satellites. So here's the kicker. If time can bend, who's to say it can't break? Modern physics entertains the possibility of closed time-like curves, essentially loops in space-time. Theoretically, these could allow for travel to the past or future. Famous physicist Kip Thorne, who consulted for the movie Interstellar, even laid out mathematical models for traversable wormholes. Now, if the math works, what's stopping us? Resources, energy, secrecy, or maybe someone already built it. Scene 4, why would they hide it? Here's a question for you. If you were in charge of a government and discovered how to manipulate time, would you share it? Would you let the public use it, or would you hide it, fearing chaos, paradoxes, or worse, enemies getting their hands on it? Time travel isn't just about sightseeing in the 1800s. It's about control, controlling events, outcomes, history. If one person can change the past, they can change everything. Every war, every election, every stock market crash or boom. Time travel is the ultimate weapon and ultimate surveillance tool, too dangerous to trust with the masses, too powerful not to use. So what if it's been used and we just don't remember? Scene 5, entering the realm of real possibility. There's an old philosophical thought experiment. How would you know if history had been altered if the alteration changed your memory along with it? Now let that settle for a second. How would you know? If someone had gone back and nudged the past, changed an event, influenced a decision, your current timeline would feel perfectly normal. No trace of what once was, unless there are glitches, unexplainable moments, memories you swear are real, but nobody else shares. Have you ever had that eerie feeling that something about reality just feels off? Maybe it's not your imagination. Maybe it's residue from a rewritten timeline. Deepening the intrigue, the Mandela effect. People remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s, even though in this timeline he lived until 2013. Others recall Berenstain Bears, but now it's Berenstain. A mistake or a clue? Thousands, millions remember events that no longer exist. Could it be faulty memory? Maybe. Or are these timeline artifacts echoes from a version of reality that no longer exists? If time travel were real and someone or something tampered with history, wouldn't there be scars? Tiny ones, barely noticeable, but felt. 7. Tying it to hidden history. Let's go back again. This time to the 1940s. The Philadelphia experiment, an alleged U.S. Navy test to render a ship invisible that accidentally teleported it. Some say the ship reappeared hundreds of miles away. Others say crew members were fused into the metal hull. Wild, right? But the idea that military experiments flirted with manipulating time and space isn't fiction anymore. It's an open secret among defense insiders. What if that experiment wasn't a failure, but the beginning? What else have they done in the decades since? The future may already be here. What if I told you that you've already encountered a time traveler? You wouldn't know it. They wouldn't dress like Marty McFly, no flying DeLorean, no glowing gadgets. They'd blend in, quiet, observing, maybe here to prevent a catastrophe, or maybe just watching us evolve, and maybe, just maybe, their actions or inactions are why things in your life unfolded exactly the way they did. Think about the little coincidences in your life, that one missed turn that saved you from an accident, that one stranger who said the right thing at the right time. What if someone nudged the timeline, at least explored it deeply? Here's what we know. The math for time travel checks out. Governments have experimented with the concept, or at least explored it deeply. Whistleblowers say the technology exists. Strange events and glitches keep piling up. So maybe the question isn't, is time travel real? Maybe the real question is, why don't they want us to know it is? And as you go about your day, pay attention to the clocks that skip, to the moments that feel too perfect or too strange. Because the next time you feel a chill in the air or a ripple in your reality, ask yourself, is this the first time I've lived this moment? Or just the only time I remember? Part 2, Project Pegasus, Children of Time. Last time we asked, what if time travel is already real but hidden from the world? This time, we're diving into a story that, if true, would flip our entire understanding of time, government secrecy, and even human potential upside down. A story not just about machines or equations, but about children. Children trained to travel through time. And one man who says he was one of them. Scene 1. The man who claimed to travel through time, Andrew D. Basiago, a lawyer, a scholar, and, according to him, a time traveler. He doesn't just claim time travel exists, he says he's done it. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times, starting when he was just 6 years old. Basiago says he was part of a secret U.S. government program in the 1970s, Project Pegasus, a DARPA-backed initiative designed to explore time travel, teleportation, and interdimensional movement. Sounds insane? Of course it does. But stay with me. The devil's not just in the details, it's in the patterns. So scene 2, what was Project Pegasus? According to Basiago, Project Pegasus operated under DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the same group behind internet technology, stealth aircraft, and countless top-secret military experiments. Pegasus, he claims, was focused on quantum access, the ability to send humans across time and space using advanced physics and classified technology. Not only did it involve time travel, it allegedly used children as the primary subjects. Why children? According to Basiago, kids are more adaptable to the trauma of teleportation. Their neural pathways are still forming. Adults tended to go insane. He claims he and other children were trained in chrononaut conditioning, how to observe without interfering, survive strange environments, and return without leaving a trace. Scene 3, the jump rooms. Now here's where it gets really wild. Basiago describes jump rooms, small elevator-like chambers that could instantly transport you across great distances. Sometimes it was just across the country, sometimes it was through time, and sometimes it was to Mars. Yes, Mars. He says he was sent to Mars multiple times, not with rockets, but through a jump room located in a building in El Segundo, California. And here's the kicker. He wasn't alone. Other participants allegedly included government officials, even a young Barack Obama going by the name Barry Soetoro. Obama, of course, has denied it. But Basiago stuck to his story, under oath, repeatedly. Why would anyone double down on something so outrageous, publicly, legally, and for decades, if it were a lie? Scene 4, support from other whistleblowers. Andrew isn't the only voice in the time travel wilderness. Enter William Stillings, another alleged Pegasus insider. His accounts match Basiago's nearly word for word. The jump rooms, the teleportations, the Mars excursions, the covert missions into alternate timelines. They claim to have undergone extensive psychological conditioning, memory suppression protocols, and training under classified government programs. Stillings said, "We weren't meant to remember, but we did. Enough of it. Enough to know it happened." It's one thing when one man says something unbelievable, but when two or more tell the same impossible story, you start to wonder. Now let's talk physics. Teleportation and time travel sound like science fiction, but theoretical physics doesn't rule them out. Quantum entanglement has already demonstrated instantaneous connection between particles across distance, something Einstein himself called spooky action at a distance. And wormholes, or Einstein-Rosen bridges, remain one of the most accepted theoretical pathways for space-time travel. Could a government with near unlimited funding and decades of black budget research have developed something based on these principles, even if only a prototype? DARPA is infamous for being 30 to 40 years ahead of the public sector in research. So ask yourself, if it could be done, wouldn't they be the ones doing it? Lens 6, why use children? This part hits a little harder. Why would a government program use children in something so dangerous? Some possibilities. Mental plasticity. Children's brains adapt faster to novel experiences, including time shifts and spatial dislocation. Obedience. Children are less likely to rebel, question authority, or understand the moral complexity of what's happening. No paper trail. Children are easier to disappear in the system without drawing attention. It's chilling to consider, but would it really be the first time the US government experimented on vulnerable groups? Tuskegee, MK Ultra, Operation Midnight Climax. History shows they've done worse. Missions and mandates. Basiago claims his assignments included observing key historical events, monitoring alternate timelines, delivering briefings to figures in the past about the future. He even claims he was sent back to witness Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and Ford's Theater the night Lincoln was shot. He says that multiple versions of himself were there, all sent from different points in his life. Think about that. Multiple versions of the same person converging in time. If true, it would break everything we think we know about chronology, identity, and causality. Scene 8, the Obama link, coincidence or clue. Let's go back to the Obama angle. Bago claims Barack Obama was part of the program. They trained together, they traveled together. Obama has obviously denied any involvement. But think about this. How does a man with a relatively mysterious background, foreign travel records sealed, education records protected, rise so fast, so far, so smoothly? Could it be luck, charisma, destiny, or knowledge of the future? What if someone groomed him knowing exactly what role he'd play decades later? And if they groomed him, how many others? A controlled narrative. The moment these stories surface, what happens? They get buried under ridicule. Mainstream media ignores them. Fact checkers label them delusional. The subjects get mocked, discredited, sometimes even disappear from public view. But isn't that exactly how you'd expect a real cover-up to play out? Ridicule is the first defense. You don't have to erase someone if the world just laughs at them. Think of it this way. If you discovered the biggest secret in human history and no one believed you, would it even matter? Pulling it all together with a hook. So what do we have? A government agency with a history of extreme experimentation. A man with a law degree, a photographic memory, and decades of consistent testimony. Independent confirmations from other alleged participants. Scientific theories that don't rule any of it out, and a suspicious silence from every official channel. What if Project Pegasus wasn't a fantasy, but a pilot program? What if it succeeded? What if time travel is real and was first achieved not in the future, but in our past? And the most terrifying question of all, if children were the first travelers, where did they go? And did they ever really come back? To be continued in Part 3, The Montauk Mysteries, Experiments in the Shadows. Part 3, The Montauk Mysteries, Experiments in the Shadows. Last time, we followed the trail of Project Pegasus, a secret time travel initiative allegedly involving children, jump rooms, and trips to Mars. Now, we go deeper into the rabbit hole. What if Project Pegasus wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning? What if a second, darker program picked up where Pegasus left off? One that didn't just send children through time, but broke them, rewired them, and rebuilt them. A place whispered about in conspiracy forums for decades. A place called Montauk, a base that shouldn't exist. At the eastern tip of Long Island, New York, sits an old military installation, Camp Hero. To most, it's a relic, overgrown radar towers, rusted fences, concrete bunkers lost in the weeds. But to others, it's the epicenter of one of the most disturbing secret programs in U.S. history, the Montauk Project. According to alleged insiders, Camp Hero was far more than a radar station. Beneath the surface, literally, were multiple underground levels, labs, chambers, even dimensional portals. And what happened in those dark corridors was anything but heroic. Much of what we know about Montauk comes from a man named Preston B. Nichols, an electrical engineer with degrees in psychology, parapsychology, and electronics. Nichols claimed he worked at Montauk, helping develop mind control technology and time manipulation experiments. He didn't recover those memories at first. They came back in waves through dreams, trauma, and what he called psychic bleeding. What he remembered was chilling. Children abducted and subjected to psychological conditioning in Reich, telepathy, remote viewing, and psychic warfare. Dimensional rifts torn open by thought alone, and a machine that could manifest whatever you imagined. He called it the Montauk chair. Let that sink in. A device that could turn thoughts into reality. Scene 3, the Montauk chair and the psychic boy. According to Nichols, the Montauk chair amplified human psychic energy using scalar electromagnetics. When a subject sat in the chair, hooked to sensors and immersed in frequencies, they could do more than imagine. They could create objects, beings, even time portals. And one boy in particular became the focus of their obsession. His name? Duncan Cameron. Nichols said Duncan had unmatched psychic potential. He was used again and again in Montauk's most dangerous experiments. At one point, Duncan allegedly opened a portal that sent scientists through space and time. But things got unstable. On August 12, 1983, something went horribly wrong. Duncan, in a trance, manifested a creature from his subconscious, a monstrous being, a thought form, and it tore through the underground base in a rage, destroying equipment, collapsing chambers. The project was immediately shut down, or so they say. Here's where things get even weirder. Nichols claimed that the Montauk Project was intentionally synchronized with an earlier event, the Philadelphia experiment in 1943. You may have heard of it. The U.S. Navy supposedly tested a cloaking device on the USS Eldridge and accidentally made it disappear. Some say it reappeared hundreds of miles away. Some say it traveled through time. Others say sailors were fused into the ship's hull, screaming in agony. Nichols claimed the two events, Montauk and Philadelphia, were linked by a 40-year timeline convergence, triggering massive temporal feedback. They were experimenting with the same energy. Two different projects, 40 years apart, one loop in time. 5. The children talk. Now comes the darkest chapter. Nichols and other insiders claim the Montauk team recruited or abducted hundreds of children for experimentation. Why children? Just like in Project Pegasus, they were psychically sensitive, easily manipulated, and the public wouldn't notice them missing. These children were allegedly subjected to memory erasure, split personality induction, genetic experimentation, forced time travel. Some were sent into the future, some into alternate dimensions, some never came back. Nichols said many of them were trained to be sleepers, psychic agents waiting to be triggered later in life, possibly even among us now. Scene 6, physical evidence. You might be asking, is there any proof? For years, Montauk believers have pointed to unexplained underground tunnels beneath Camp Hero. Government documents redacted beyond recognition, witnesses who independently describe the same bizarre experiments, psychological trauma consistent with MK Ultra-like protocols, and a strict military no-access zone, even decades after decommission. In 2017, New York State finally opened part of Camp Hero as a public park, but visitors are forbidden from entering certain buildings. No tours, no photos. And most disturbing, the entrances to underground levels cemented shut. Why seal off something if there's nothing to hide? Pop culture or predictive programming. Think Montauk sounds familiar? Maybe you've seen a little show called Stranger Things, originally titled Montauk. The net hit was directly inspired by the Montauk Project, a child with psychic powers held in a secret lab, portals to other dimensions, government mind control. Sound familiar? Maybe it's just fiction, or maybe it's what Hollywood always does best: hide the truth in plain sight. Ending, the questions that won't go away. So here's what we've got: a decommissioned base with locked bunkers and sealed tunnels, a whistleblower with detailed knowledge of mind control and time physics, dozens of supporting testimonies over the years, direct connections to other classified programs, and a government that simply pretends none of it happened. But if it was all fake, why try so hard to bury it? Why the concrete? Why the silence? Why the fear? And the bigger question is this: if Montauk could turn thoughts into reality, whose thoughts are shaping our present reality now? Part 4, Chrono Wars, the battle for time itself. Cinematic tone. In the last episode, we uncovered the chilling legacy of the Montauk Project: thought-activated machines, time portals, psychic warfare, and children lost in time. But what if Montauk was just one battlefield in a far bigger war? A war that doesn't take place across continents, but across centuries. What if world powers, governments, shadow syndicates, even private corporations, aren't just fighting for land or oil anymore? What if they're fighting for something far more valuable: time? And what if, just maybe, history itself has already been rewritten? Let's start with something few people have ever heard of: Project Looking Glass. According to leaked documents and whistleblower testimony, this was a top-secret initiative run out of Area 51 and S4 in Nevada. Its goal? To peer into possible future timelines. How? Using a strange device that allegedly combined rotating high-energy electromagnetic rings, exotic materials possibly derived from downed UFOs, and quantum field resonance. The result? An interface, a literal window into potential futures. The machine didn't just predict the future, it allowed operators to choose which version of the future to follow. One whistleblower, a former military contractor known only as Bill Wood, claimed they could see events unfold years in advance: political outcomes, wars, disasters. They were manipulating the timeline. He also said that by the early 2000s, the timelines began to converge. No matter what they did, all futures led to the same mysterious event. Timeline convergence, the event horizon. So what is this event that all paths seem to lead to? According to multiple insiders, humanity reaches a kind of collective awakening. Secrets are revealed, control structures collapse, and the power elite, the ones pulling the strings, lose everything. So they panicked. They tried everything to change the future: wars, pandemics, false flags, economic collapses, all to delay or divert humanity from reaching that event. But nothing worked. Every timeline collapsed into the same point of no return. This raises a haunting question. If the future is inevitable, what does that say about free will? And more importantly, what are they willing to do to stop it? Scene 3, Temporal Weapons and the Shadow War. Time travel isn't just about exploration anymore. It's about domination. There are claims that multiple countries, the US, China, Russia, and a rogue group known as the Black Cube Society, have been engaged in a covert temporal arms race for decades. And the weapons? They're not guns or bombs. They're moments in time. Here's how it works. Imagine assassinating a world leader before they rise to power, sabotaging a breakthrough before it's invented, or creating false memories that reshape entire populations. According to one source, the CIA and DARPA developed temporal insertion units, small pods capable of sending objects or people back days, months, even years, with very specific missions. Some of these missions were labeled chronal disruptions. Targets weren't killed. They were erased, completely removed from the timeline. No body, no past, no future. Gone. Scene 4, the Mandela effect, collateral damage. Ever heard of the Mandela effect? It's when large groups of people remember an event or detail differently than what is officially recorded. Examples: Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. He didn't. The Monopoly Man had a monocle. He doesn't. Berenstain Bears versus Berenstain Bears. People laugh it off as bad memory. But what if these are residual echoes from timelines that have been tampered with? If agencies or forces are editing reality, altering events or outcomes, we might feel that as a faint disruption in our memory, a glitch, a ripple. And here's a terrifying thought. What if we've all lived through multiple timeline edits and we just don't remember? Scene 5, Chronoprotection Protocols, Guarding the Timeline. There's also evidence of efforts to police the timeline. Insiders speak of a secretive group, possibly within the NSA or a breakaway civilization, known as the Chrono Guard. Their job? Monitor unauthorized time travel, detect temporal anomalies, eliminate time terrorists, rogue agents altering history for their own gain. They use advanced AI, quantum surveillance, and even retrocausality algorithms, systems that can spot disruptions before they happen. Some suggest that the déjà vu experience isn't a brain hiccup, but a real-time alert, your consciousness noticing a reset or minor timeline correction. Scene 6, Scientific Foundations. Is time travel actually possible? Now let's bring in some hard science. Time travel isn't just the stuff of sci-fi. Serious physicists have explored it. Einstein's theory of general relativity allows for space-time to bend, twist, and loop, potentially forming closed time-like curves. Kip Thorne, Nobel laureate, proposed wormholes as time machines. Quantum entanglement and retrocausality suggest that particles can influence each other backwards in time. There's even the block universe theory, the idea that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, and time is an illusion of perception. So the science doesn't disprove time travel. It demands it. The real question is, who's using it, and why are they so desperate to hide it? History is a weapon. So now we must ask ourselves, have wars been fought in eras we'll never know existed? Have rulers, inventions, or entire civilizations been erased from time? Are we living in a version of reality that someone else chose for us? If time is a battlefield, we are the civilians caught in the crossfire. Our memories might not be our own, our histories might be engineered, and our future, it might already be decided. But here's the catch. Every war leaves traces, and every lie, even one told across time, eventually unravels. Next time, Part 5, Time Travelers Among Us. If time travel is real, where are the time travelers? What if they're already here, blending in, watching, guiding, or manipulating? Part 5, Time Travelers Among Us, Hidden in Plain Sight. If time travel is real, then it leads to a chillingly simple question. Where are the time travelers? Wouldn't we have seen one? Wouldn't someone, anyone, have come forward with undeniable proof? But what if they're already here? What if they've always been here? Not as tourists in shiny suits, but as watchers, as guides, or worse, as manipulators, hiding behind the mask of normalcy. The truth might be standing right next to you, in line, at work, in your own family. Let's take a closer look. Back in the early 2000s, a user appeared on obscure internet forums under the name John Tidor. He claimed to be a U.S. soldier sent from the year 2036, part of a military program tasked with retrieving an IBM 5100 computer from 1975. Why? Because that model had unique code translation abilities no longer available in his time and needed to debug legacy systems in a post-nuclear future. At first, people laughed, until his posts revealed detailed diagrams of his time machine, physics-based explanations using Kerr black holes and rotating singularities, specific predictions about civil unrest, disease, and geopolitical shifts. Not all came true, which he explained by saying he came from a slightly different timeline, but some things came eerily close. And then he vanished. Never posted again, never tracked, never debunked. So who was he? A prankster? An early internet myth? Or something else? And if he was fake, why did the military allegedly monitor those forums after his disappearance? Scene 2, the out-of-time individuals. Now let's talk about the ones caught by accident. There are thousands of reports of individuals who appeared wearing clothes from decades or centuries past or future, spoke in dialects that no longer exist, carried objects never seen before or never seen again. One famous case, in 1950, a man was hit by a car in Times Square, NYC. He wore 19th century clothes, had outdated money, and ID from 1876. The story was never fully explained. The man had no modern identity, no records. His body was taken by officials and quietly disappeared. Sound crazy? Ask yourself, why are there classified files about incidents like this? Why are some urban legends off limits in national archives? 3. Celebrities and the immortality loop. Some claim that time travelers hide in plain sight, using fame as a shield. Take a look at images comparing Keanu Reeves and Paul Mounet, a French actor from the 1800s. Nicolas Cage and a Civil War-era soldier Jay-Z and a 1930s Harlem street man. Yes, it could be coincidence or manipulated photos. But the resemblance is often uncanny. Bone structure, eyes, posture. There's even a theory that certain celebrities are recycled identities, people who jump forward in time, reinvent themselves, and vanish again. A conspiracy? Maybe. But if you could control time, wouldn't fame be the perfect cover? Money, power, influence, and an easy way to steer culture, politics, or even technology. Scene 4. Time travel symptoms. Have you ever experienced missing time, sworn something happened, but everyone else says it didn't? Dreamed about future events, and then they happened? These are often dismissed as tricks of the brain, but whistleblowers say they could be symptoms of temporal exposure. When you're near someone who's manipulating time, your consciousness might drift, glitching between what was and what will be. Some people even report sudden emotional shifts like depression or déjà vu without cause. Could it be that our minds are picking up on something out of place? Could time travelers be leaving traces without meaning to? There are rumors, persistent and growing, that governments and corporations have embedded time agents into the modern world. Some are there to observe, some to influence, some to eliminate anomalies. These agents don't look futuristic, they look like you and me. But insiders say they can be identified by sudden appearance in key events without a traceable background, access to information they shouldn't know, a strange detachment, almost like they're watching reality, not living it. One former intelligence analyst anonymously reported, "We were told to flag people with no digital footprint before 2010, perfect documentation, and zero childhood records. They call them cleanskins. They're not ghosts, they're travelers." Let that sink in. They're among us. Not to reveal the future, but to manage it. Scene 6, the psychological war, gaslighting time itself. But what if the best way to hide a time traveler is to make people doubt they ever saw one? There's evidence that intelligence agencies have run disinformation campaigns for decades to bury real sightings under piles of fake ones. Fake time travel TikToks, sloppy YouTube hoaxes, tourists from the future videos that scream staged, all designed to do one thing: discredit the truth. So when the real time traveler walks by, you don't look twice. And if you do, you laugh. Move on. Call it clickbait. But that's how you hide in plain sight. That's how they win. Scene 7. Science. Could time travelers blend in? Now, let's bring it back to science. Physicists like Stephen Hawking challenged time travel by holding a party for time travelers and inviting them after it ended. No one showed up. But what if time travelers don't respond to invitations? What if they're not allowed to break protocol? Think about this. If time travelers existed, would they risk changing major events? Or would they integrate into the background, learning, watching, guiding? Could they be studying us for reasons we can't yet understand? Ending, the stranger among you. Tonight, when you walk through a crowd, when you pass a stranger with unusual eyes, or overhear someone mention a fact that hasn't happened yet, ask yourself, what if they're not from here? What if they're not from now? Would you even know? And more importantly, would they tell you? Next time, Part 6, the suppression protocol. If time travel is real and active, then someone must be covering it up. Who are they? What methods do they use to erase evidence? And is there a hidden war to silence the truth? Part 6, the suppression protocol, erasing the evidence. If time travel exists and time travelers are among us, then one question becomes disturbingly clear. Why don't we know about it? Why isn't it in the news? Why haven't there been major leaks? Why don't we have undeniable proof? Because someone or something doesn't want us to. There is a force working behind the scenes, not just hiding the truth, but erasing it. They don't silence whistleblowers, they rewrite them. This isn't about conspiracy anymore. This is about control of time itself. And once you understand how far they're willing to go, you'll never trust reality the same way again. Scene 1, the Mandela effect, collective memory, or altered history. Have you ever remembered something with absolute certainty, only to find out it never happened? The Berenstain Bears. Not Berenstain. Nelson Mandela dying in the 80s, even though he lived until 2013. Did Darth Vader say, "Luke, I am your father," or "No, I am your father"? These are not just pop culture mix-ups. They are part of a global phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. One theory? They're the result of micro-time edits, slight changes made by temporal agencies to tweak events. Why? To steer society in different directions, to test behavioral shifts, or to eliminate dangerous timelines. But these edits aren't perfect. They leave echoes in the human mind, residual memories that don't match the rewritten version of history. And the more people remember the wrong version, the more dangerous the truth becomes. Scene 2, the keepers. Who's really in control? Let's talk about who is doing the suppressing. According to declassified files, independent testimonies, and deep insiders, there's a secret network operating above any government, a transnational alliance of intelligence, defense, and private corporate entities. They go by many names in rumor circles. The Keepers Chrononet Division 6, the Silence Bureau. Their job is simple: maintain the illusion. If a time traveler is spotted, they intercept. If a leak occurs, they discredit. If someone gets too close, they vanish. And their methods? Terrifyingly effective. Scene 3, whistleblowers who disappeared. Let's look at the numbers. Over the past 30 years, dozens of physicists, time theory researchers, and classified contractors have died in freak accidents, gone missing under bizarre circumstances, been labeled as mentally unstable after revealing anomalies. Take Dr. Yelena Kravitz, a Soviet physicist who reportedly worked on temporal field collapse theory. She defected to the West in 1991. She spoke once during a closed panel in Geneva about time field manipulations by a Russian satellite. Weeks later, she fell from her hotel balcony. Case ruled as suicide. Or Harold Bixby, an engineer at CERN who left behind handwritten journals about persistent tachyon interference during LHC tests. He was found drowned in his own bathtub with no water in his lungs. The journals? Confiscated, never released. Ask yourself, what were they trying to tell us, and who wanted them silent? Scene 4, rewriting the present, Operation Haze. Here's where it gets darker. In 2013, leaked documents from a private contractor codenamed Kronos Tech described an internal directive, Operation Haze, a psychological protocol to neutralize public interest in time anomalies. The idea? Flood media platforms with fake time traveler videos, encourage debunking culture and ridicule, insert joke stories into news cycles to desensitize the public. Because if everything is a joke, then nothing is taken seriously. It's the perfect smokescreen. You don't have to destroy the truth, you just bury it in noise. 5. The technology lockdown. Another way to suppress time travel? Control the technology. Real-time manipulation would require ultra-high precision quantum processors, energy levels on par with small nuclear reactions, spatial temporal stabilization fields using exotic matter. Guess who has that tech? Not universities, not independent labs, but government-backed contractors like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, DARPA's black budget divisions. Every single breakthrough in tachyon detection, entangled clocks, and temporal symmetry is either classified, shelved, or buried under patent redirection. Why? Because if someone in the private sector succeeds, it breaks the game. The past, the future, and every secret in between, suddenly accessible. And the ones in power, they don't want that. When you forget on purpose. Now here's something deeply unsettling. What if you have seen something? What if, at some point, you witnessed a temporal anomaly, and you just don't remember? Some insiders claim there's technology called MNEM wipe, a neuroelectric pulse that targets short-term memory encoding. It's used by field agents when a civilian stumbles into an experiment, a time traveler makes contact, a location gets temporally destabilized. Victims report sudden headaches, lost time, 30 minutes to 2 hours, vivid dreams days later, often futuristic or disjointed. Is it sci-fi? Maybe. But MKUltra was science fiction too. until the CIA admitted it was real. So ask yourself, have you ever forgotten something you shouldn't have? I suppress the truth. If time travel is real and proven, the consequences are massive. History becomes negotiable. Religion, politics, identity, all destabilized. Cause and effect? Shattered. Society would lose its grip on linear truth. So instead, they preserve the illusion of normality. Let the sheep sleep, let the rebels chase shadows, let the real travelers operate undetected. The glitch in the matrix. Every now and then, reality glitches. You feel it. You see something that doesn't make sense. You meet someone who doesn't quite fit. You remember something that never existed, and when you try to explain it, you're called crazy. You're gaslit by the system, a system designed to protect the secret. But you're not crazy. You're awake. So stay sharp, because the deeper you go, the harder they'll work to stop you. Part 7, The Philadelphia Experiment Revisited, Vanishing Ships and Warp Time. Opening, calm, intense tone with slight disbelief. In 1943, in the heart of World War II, the U.S. Navy conducted an experiment that was meant to be kept under wraps forever. But they failed. The Philadelphia Experiment. If you've heard of it, chances are it sounded like a sci-fi hoax, a fringe theory, a sailor's ghost story. But what if I told you that behind the veil of denial, there's truth? And not just truth, but the origin of modern time travel programs. Because on that day, in the naval yard of Philadelphia, a warship allegedly vanished, and when it returned, reality had changed. One, the USS Eldridge incident. Let's start with what the official history books won't say. The USS Eldridge, a Cannon-class destroyer escort, was involved in a top-secret experiment known as Project Rainbow. Objective? To render naval ships invisible to radar using powerful electromagnetic fields. But something else happened. Eyewitnesses claim that a green-blue haze surrounded the ship. It shimmered, then disappeared. Minutes later, it reappeared, miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, and then returned back to Philadelphia. Instantly. Not sailed, not transported, teleported. Some say the ship moved not just in space, but in time. Scene 2, what happened to the crew? What came back wasn't just a ship. It was a nightmare. Survivors, the few who could still speak, were reportedly disoriented, confused, some even insane. But others were worse. Some crewmen were burned from the inside out. Others were fused into the metal bulkheads of the ship, alive. A few would vanish days later in front of their families, never to be seen again. Documents and witness interviews from that era, many of which were smuggled out, describe post-experiment symptoms like temporal dislocation, blackouts lasting days, spontaneous teleportation, memory loss, and timeline confusion. Sound familiar? That's exactly what we described in Part 6, the signs of memory scrubbing and time manipulation. Coincidence? Or the first uncontrolled time rift in military history? Scene 3, Carlos Allende and the letter that leaked everything. We wouldn't even know about this if not for one man, Carl Meredith Allen, also known as Carlos Allende. In the 1950s, he sent a series of letters to UFO researcher Morris K. Jessup describing the experiment in chilling detail. Allende claimed he witnessed the Eldridge vanish. He spoke to survivors suffering from temporal sickness. The Navy was experimenting with Einstein's unified field theory, twisting electromagnetic energy to bend space and time. Jessup dismissed it at first, until he received a heavily annotated copy of his own book, covered in handwritten notes by 3 anonymous figures, Mr. A, Mr. B, and Jemmy. The notes discussed time travel, alien technology, and interdimensional physics in past tense, as if the writers weren't theorizing, but remembering. 4. The mysterious Varro edition. The Navy, strangely, took great interest in these notes. They had the book reprinted, classified, limited distribution, known as the Varro edition. Why would the Navy print a book filled with what should have been fringe nonsense? Unless it wasn't nonsense, unless someone within the system saw it as a leak of something real, a field experiment gone wrong, or worse, gone right. Scene 5, tying it back to today, the Temporal Continuity Program. Let's fast forward. The Pentagon now openly funds time and gravity research through DARPA and other fronts. One leaked initiative, the TCP, Temporal Continuity Program. Its mission, to ensure stable historical flow and prevent external manipulation. Sounds familiar? Sounds like they've been dealing with ripples, maybe from the 1943 experiment, maybe they're still trying to seal the breach, or worse, maybe they've weaponized it. And the Philadelphia experiment, it was just the beta test. Scene 6, alternate theories, accidents versus access points. Some physicists propose another theory. What happened on the USS Eldridge wasn't a failure. It was an accidental breakthrough, a wormhole opened through raw electromagnetic resonance. Unstable? Yes. But repeatable? Absolutely. If the Navy found a natural time gateway, even for a few seconds, you can bet they've spent decades studying it, replicating it, and most importantly, hiding it. And if the tech exists in military hands, then you have to ask, what other moments in history have been tampered with? What events have been prevented or forced? The 7. Why the disinformation? The Philadelphia experiment has been mocked, dismissed, turned into movies, books, even cartoons. Classic discredit by parody. That's the blueprint. Release truth, surround it with fiction, let the public laugh it off. But the Navy's behavior speaks louder than its denials. They've destroyed files, classified survivor reports, and have never allowed full access to the Eldridge's logs. You don't do that for a hoax. You do that to protect secrets. What if it was just the beginning? The Philadelphia experiment didn't end in 1943. It began in 1943. It opened a door that may have never been closed. So when we talk about time travel today, wormholes, quantum loops, missing scientists, we're not talking about the future. We're talking about a program that started in wartime America, hidden beneath the Atlantic fog, and expanded into the darkest corners of reality. Coming up next, Part 8, Project Pegasus, Time Walking Through Childhood. What happens when children are trained to travel through time? Was a young Barack Obama involved in a 1980s time jump program? And what is chronovision, a window into the future that's already here? Part 8, Project Pegasus, Time Walking Through Childhood. Calm yet sinister tone. Imagine you're a child. You're 9 years old, but instead of riding bikes or playing video games, you're being sent into the past and sometimes the future. Not in your mind, not in a dream, physically. Your body steps through a shimmering arch and suddenly you're standing in 1863 Gettysburg or 2045 Manhattan. This isn't fiction. This is Project Pegasus, a real classified government program from the 1970s. And if the whistleblowers are to be believed, they weren't just testing time travel. They were training children to become its soldiers. Scene 1. Who is Andrew Basiago? Let's talk about a man named Andrew D. Basiago. Lawyer, activist, former child participant in Project Pegasus. He claims that from 1968 to 1972, he was part of a covert DARPA initiative under the U.S. Department of Defense. Purpose, time travel, and teleportation. As a child, Andrew says he was sent to witness historical events used in quantum experiments and even sent to Mars. Yes, Mars, but more on that in Part 9. Let's stay with Earth for now. And the most disturbing part, why children? 2. Why use children? According to Basiago, children were ideal for several reasons. Malleable minds. Kids adapt more easily to alternate realities and disorientation caused by time shifts. Lower mass. They require less energy to teleport. Memory suppression. It's easier to wipe or manipulate a child's memory afterward or implant new ones. Sound crazy? Not if you recall MK Ultra, where the government experimented with mind control on civilians, including children, using LSD and psychological torture. It wouldn't be the first time. Scene 3, the chronovisor device. One of Project Pegasus's most controversial elements? The chronovisor, a device allegedly developed by DARPA in conjunction with private inventors, based on early theoretical models from Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk and physicist. It didn't transport people through time. Instead, it created a holographic window into the past or future. You could view, record, even interact with echoes of history. Basiago claims to have watched Abraham Lincoln deliver the Gettysburg Address through one. Another Pegasus recruit, William Stillings, claimed the device could also see future disasters, helping the government prepare or suppress. The Gettysburg photograph. Now here's where it gets chillingly specific. Basiago presented a black and white photo from November 19, 1863 at Gettysburg, the day Lincoln gave his famous speech. In the photo, a young boy standing awkwardly, wearing oversized shoes, out of place, confused, alone. Basiago says, "That's me." He claims his shoes were lost during the jump and he had to borrow a pair from a 19th century blacksmith's shop. Historians have analyzed the photo, and while many call it inconclusive, no one can definitively debunk it. The boy isn't identified. He doesn't appear in any other known photo, and the expression on his face, like someone dropped into a time and place he didn't understand. Scene 5, Government Connections and High-Profile Names. Here's where it goes deeper. According to Basiago and other whistleblowers, the CIA ran Pegasus alongside DARPA. Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense under Bush, was allegedly a logistical officer on the project, and perhaps most shockingly, a teenage Barack Obama was one of the participants. Let that sink in. They claim Obama, under the name Barry Soetoro, trained in jump rooms located in California, preparing for future leadership roles. The theory? The government knew who the future presidents would be decades in advance, because they'd seen them in future timelines, because they groomed them for it. Okay, let's step back. Is any of this even possible? Actually, yes. Theoretical physics allows for time travel through Einstein-Rosen bridges, wormholes, closed time-like curves, and quantum entanglement loopholes. In 2013, Iranian scientist Ali Rezeghi filed a patent for a time machine he claimed could predict 8 years into the future. MIT's Seth Lloyd proposed a post-selected teleportation method, mathematically valid, to send information backward in time. And the Casimir effect, proven in labs, allows energy fluctuations to warp space-time. We're closer than you think. Maybe we've already been there. Scene 7, the ethical horror. Let's say it's all true. Now imagine the implications. Children used as test subjects. Timelines altered without consent. Presidents pre-selected through time manipulation. And what about the kids who didn't come back, or those whose minds broke, or the ones who still walk among us remembering things that never officially happened? That's not science fiction. That's state-sponsored time trafficking. Ask yourself this. We like to believe time flows in one direction. Simple, linear, predictable. But Project Pegasus suggests otherwise, that the river of time isn't a straight line, it's a web, tangled, rerouted, broken, stitched, and that somewhere deep in military black sites, they've been learning how to swim upstream. Coming up next, Part 9, Teleporting to Mars, the Secret Space Bridge. Did the US government develop a jump gate to the Red Planet? Were teenagers sent off-world? What does this mean for what we think we know about space? Part 9, Teleporting to Mars, the Secret Space Bridge. Opening, calm, mysterious, suspenseful. What if I told you, we've already been to Mars? Not via billion-dollar rockets, but through a teleportation program built decades ago, hidden from the public, funded in black budgets, staffed with teenagers. Welcome to Project Mars Jump Room, an alleged teleportation initiative designed to create instant access to the Red Planet. Sound crazy? Wait until you hear who was involved and what they found on the other side. In the late 2000s, whistleblowers Andrew Basiago and William Brett Stillings came forward with shocking claims. Between 1980 and 1983, they were part of a CIA-run program that teleported human beings to Mars. How? Through jump rooms, secretive, elevator-like chambers located in hidden facilities across the U.S., primarily in El Segundo, California. These rooms, according to the claims, utilized quantum displacement technology to instantly send people to underground bases on Mars. No rockets, no suits, no launch pads, just a door and a leap across space-time. 2. The alleged participants? Not just random kids, but highly selected recruits. According to Basiago and Stillings, they were chosen for their ability to withstand psychological stress. Many were already involved in time travel programs like Pegasus. And the most shocking? A young Barack Obama, under the name Barry Soetoro, was one of the Mars jumpers. Yes, again. They claim he trained alongside them in California, preparing for teleportation to the Red Planet as part of off-world diplomacy. Why send teens to Mars? They argue the government believed young people would adapt more easily to the stress and trauma of interplanetary teleportation and were more easily controlled. Sounds like Pegasus all over again. Scene 3, what was on Mars? But what exactly were they doing up there? Basiago claimed missions included surveying ancient ruins, mapping terrain, engaging with Martian life forms. Yes, life forms. According to his testimony, Mars was not lifeless. There were biological entities, both animal-like and humanoid, some peaceful, others dangerous. He described creatures resembling bipedal lizards, insectoids, and even ancient Martian civilizations long buried beneath the red sands. He says the government knew this and had been in contact for decades. 4. Bases on Mars. He also described man-made facilities, subsurface bases built by both Earth and Martian hands, some operational, some abandoned. Some of these outposts were allegedly created through joint efforts between shadow governments and non-human intelligences. The goals? To secure resources, to experiment in isolation, and to establish a strategic presence before any public colonization efforts. And guess what? In recent years, former Lockheed Martin engineers and other aerospace insiders have hinted at breakaway space programs, fleets and bases operating outside public knowledge, decades ahead of what we think is possible. Is Mars part of that hidden world? And 5, scientific possibility. Let's ask, is this even plausible? Teleportation through quantum entanglement has been demonstrated, albeit only on particles, in labs around the world. NASA and DARPA have long explored exotic propulsion and spatial compression technologies. The Alcubierre drive, a theoretical method of faster-than-light travel via space-time distortion, is being quietly studied by military contractors. And most importantly, in 2001, a patent surfaced, allegedly tied to military tech, describing spatial displacement via phase manipulation. It was later sealed under national security orders. Coincidence? Or evidence of tech far beyond our public understanding? Scene 6, official silence. NASA, of course, denies everything. They claim humans have never set foot on Mars. Yet in 2011, shortly after Basiago's story gained traction, a sudden spike occurred in classified patents related to exotic transportation systems. Why classify if there's nothing to hide? And why did CIA contractors suddenly begin redacting Mars references from internal documents? Silence is rarely neutral. Sometimes it's a strategy. Breakaway civilizations. What if a parallel society already exists off-world? A breakaway group using time and teleportation tech operating beyond Earth's surface and our laws. Basiago and Stillings suggest that Mars was merely the beginning. That from the red planet, we've branched out further. That time travel and teleportation weren't just experiments, they were infrastructure, used to build a new civilization beyond the stars. Let that sink in. So let's bring it back. 2 men, decades of consistent testimony, claims of teleportation, secret missions, and contact with life beyond Earth, all dismissed as fantasy, yet never officially investigated, never legally challenged, and as always, quietly ignored by those who know. What if our greatest space achievements already happened? What if our first steps on Mars didn't make headlines because they were never meant to? Coming next, Part 10, The Ultimate Cover-Up, Why You'll Never Hear the Truth. Why would governments go to such lengths to hide time travel and teleportation? What do they fear the public will do? And who's really pulling the strings? Stay curious. Part 10, The Ultimate Cover-Up, Why You'll Never Hear the Truth. Opening, dark, cinematic tone with building suspense. What happens when you uncover the impossible? When someone steps forward and says time travel is real, I've done it, and they're hiding it from you. Do they get investigated, protected, heard? No. They get silenced, discredited, erased. But why? Why go to such lengths to hide something so world-changing? Unless the lie isn't just about time travel, it's about control. Let's pull back the curtain one last time. Scene 1. The power of time travel. If time travel exists, truly, reliably, what does that mean for power, for warfare, for politics? A government or secretive group with the ability to reverse bad decisions, eliminate threats before they arise, rewrite history, predict the future, would no longer govern, they would rule. And the people? We'd become pawns in a game already won, before we ever knew it began. That's not just science fiction, that's total control. Scene 2, The Real Reasons for Secrecy. Whistleblowers like Basiago, Stillings, and others have claimed for years. They hide this tech not because we're not ready, but because they're not ready to lose control. Because if time travel became public knowledge, every war crime could be exposed, every political lie unraveled, every accidental event, assassinations, disasters, elections, could be rewound and analyzed. The timeline would no longer be theirs to write. It would belong to all of us. And that is terrifying to those in power. Let's talk about how they hide it. When someone makes an outrageous claim, like having time traveled or met Martians, what's your first instinct? You laugh, you roll your eyes. That's by design. Through media saturation, disinformation, and mockery, the system ensures that even true stories sound insane. And if someone pushes too hard, they disappear. Remember Phil Schneider, the geologist who spoke of underground alien bases and black ops tech? He was found dead in 1996, under suspicious circumstances, ruled a suicide. Or Gary McKinnon, the British hacker who claimed to find documents about non-terrestrial officers and fleet-to-fleet transfers in NASA's systems. He was nearly extradited to the US for cyber terrorism. They weren't afraid he hacked in, they were afraid he'd seen too much. 4. The silent technologies. Let's take inventory. Teleportation, claimed to exist since the 1970s via DARPA and Project Pegasus. Time travel, allegedly operational via chronovisor or Tesla-based quantum access portals. Jump rooms to Mars, described in multiple consistent testimonies by independent whistleblowers. Breakaway civilizations, supported by leaked patents, secret budgets, and corporate aerospace witnesses. And what do all these have in common? They're not in our hands. They belong to military contractors, intelligence agencies, private black budget operations with no oversight. These aren't just secrets, they're privatized future monopolies. The cost of disclosure. So why not reveal it? Because the truth doesn't just change science, it would change religion. What happens to prophecy if the future can be visited? Law. What's the value of testimony if time can be verified? History. How much of what we believe is real was planted? And worst of all, it would collapse the illusion that we are in control of our reality. Because if someone else holds the remote to time itself, then we're not living in the present. We're living in their version of the past. It's already happening. Have you noticed how many people talk about shifts in reality? The Mandela effect, mass misremembering of historical facts, sudden changes in geopolitics or narratives, odd inconsistencies in memory, media, or maps. Some say these are signs of timeline tampering, micro-adjustments made by time travelers, perhaps to avoid disasters or test outcomes. But each time they fix something, something else breaks. Have we been nudged into different branches of reality without consent? And if so, who decides what version we're in? Across these 10 parts, we've explored whistleblower testimony, government documents, scientific principles, and conspiracy patterns, all pointing to one truth. Time travel exists. It has for decades. And the reason we don't know is because we were never meant to. From Montauk to Mars, from Tesla to DARPA, from denial to disappearance, every clue points to the same conclusion. We are living in a timeline curated by others. And if that's true, what happens when we try to break free? So now it's up to you. Ask yourself, why do they mock time travel but pour billions into quantum research? Why do they arrest hackers but never refute what they found? Why are the craziest stories always the most detailed and the most ignored? Maybe the real conspiracy isn't about time travel. Maybe it's about who controls the story. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we take it back. Because if we can't trust the present and the past is no longer ours, then the future must be reclaimed. You've just traveled far beyond what you were told was possible, but maybe you were meant to find this. Thank you for spending your time with Listen and Imagine. We hope this journey sparked your thoughts and stirred your imagination. If you enjoyed this experience, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment to let us know what you think. Your support helps Listen and Imagine continue to grow and bring more stories to life. Until next time, keep listening and keep imagining. Thank you.